walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind in the Twilight Zone.
Ja mensen, daar zitten we in de Twilight Zone. Ja. Goed, we zijn weer live mensen, RHTV Live. We gaan even het beeld weer delen. En dan zie je waar we vandaan streamen. Maastricht. We are live streaming from Maastricht. So, let's take a look at the news. At what's happening in the Netherlands and the rest of the world, of course. There was a big demonstration in Amsterdam. So we're going to take a look at that first. And then we have other subjects to speak about. So back to the studio.
Ik sta op, omdat de zorg afgeschaald wordt en er 1 miljard betaald wordt voor een testsamenleving, voor een klok in de avond. Ik sta op de straat, opdat het normaal wordt. Ik sta op, omdat de zorg afgeschaald wordt en er 1 miljard betaald wordt voor een testsamenleving, voor een klok in de avond. Ik sta op de straat, opdat het normaal wordt. Manipulatie, de dwang en angst. Ben je wakker, weet je ondertussen dat het anders kan. Gedehumaniseerd als een wappie, want werk je niet meer mee, dan ben je niet langer van belang. Was never een slaaf van het systeem, fuck een deep state, een cliché, maar doe niet mee. 1 miljard voor een testsamenleving, maar geen 1 bed erbij in die tijd op de IC. Naïeve mensen die nu gaan slapen, worden wakker in totalitaire superstaten. Niet geloven wat ze ons zeggen, door te luisteren naar Tupac was ik al lang een complotdenker. Het staat in de boeken, het is echt een plan. Door het consumeren van pesticiden zijn veel mannen geen echte man. Waardoor je slaaf wordt, maar ik niet, ik vecht tot de dood en ik sta op.
So you saw images from Amsterdam. Duizenden mensen in Amsterdam tegen Rutte 4. Thousands of people in Amsterdam against Rutte 4, which is our new cabinet. It's still the same people. Yep, and that's what they call a democracy. Yep, because we voted. Yeah, we voted. What about the elections during 2020, right? You're not really allowed to talk about that, but Twitter is giving all sorts of files, and we'll see what these files will tell us about the elections, right? Twitter files. Twitter was also involved in the Brazilian elections, right? Now, I wonder how Lula became president. Wasn't he in jail because of corruption? I thought so, but nope. This is how politics works, people. You know, they do not care about the population. Very, very easy to understand. You see, when I look at the world, I see other countries such as Iran. Now, what's been happening in Iran, right? Someone wearing a headscarf was arrested, and that person died under custody. Now, in America, that may happen frequently, you know, but Iran, it's a lot different. They have Ayatollah, religious politics over there. So this person had died, and major protests in Iran, and now there are people who got caught by the police and are put on trial, right? They're put on trial. Now, two Iranian people will be executed or are executed because they attacked cops and stuff like that. You know, very, very sad to see, because they try to quell the unrest, you know, by executing people, but people only get more angry. Yeah, that's what's happening in Iran. We're going to take a look at those images.
یه وری که افتاده بود، یه نفر رو پهلوی و دنده سمت پای چپم به سر ایشون وارد کردم، سر و گردن ایشون. بعد از اینکه این سنگ رو زدم، 3 ضربه به سرش وارد کردم با مشت. با یه سنگ به سرش ضربه زدم. بعد از اینکه این سنگ رو زدم، 3 ضربه به سرش وارد کردم با مشت.
The death penalty being handed to protesters, but also about 500 protesters have been documented by human rights organizations to have been killed during the protest itself. Essentially, the goal of this is to instill fear, but what it's actually doing is generating more anger, it's generating even more protests. We're seeing funerals of protesters turning into new protests themselves.
Mensen, dat gebeurt dus in Iran. En ja, mensen worden terechtgesteld omdat ze agenten hebben aangevallen en zoiets. Het is echt, ja, die worden gewoon geëxecuteerd. Ja, jij mocht niet meer leven, je hebt een agent aangevallen. This is what's happening, people. Now, when I say thousands of people are missing in national parks in the US and in Canada and elsewhere. We've shown it on RHTVLive a few times, even on an island near Portugal. You know, when I say thousands of people are missing under weird circumstances, then you say I'm a conspiracy theorist and this and that. Nope, I'm not. Duizenden mensen verdwijnen uit nationale parken in Amerika en Canada en onder hele vreemde omstandigheden. En ja, we gaan even een stukje kijken naar één van de casus die RHTVLive even voorlegt. Slecht geluid. Hoe kan je nou slecht geluid hebben? Snap ik niet. Ik heb een nieuwe microfoon, heb ik het erop aangesloten en ja, weer slecht geluid hebben. Hoe kan het nou? Ja, nogmaals, we gaan even kijken naar een van de casus die van verdwenen mensen uit Canada en Amerika. En we gaan even kijken.
Something very strange seems to be going on inside of national parks in North America. Every year, hundreds of people go missing in these parks, but these parks are huge expanses of wilderness. So it's not particularly unusual that people might go missing inside of them. But every year, of those hundreds of people that go missing, there's always a few that go missing under very strange circumstances. Either the way in which they disappeared doesn't really add up. You know, someone will be watching or keeping an eye on someone, they'll turn around and then turn back and that person's missing and there's not a trace of them and they're never found again. Or you'll have instances of someone will go missing, there'll be an extensive search, there's no trace of them, and then they're found like miles and miles away in locations that are almost impossible to get to. Now, one man, David Politis, who's a former police detective, he began researching these very strange disappearances inside of national parks. It started when a park ranger actually approached him and said, hey, there's a bunch of weird things happening in state parks. You should look into it because you're a former detective. And so after looking into it, he discovered that there were so many oddities around many of these strange disappearances. And he saw there was many overlaps and similarities that he really dove into it. And he's examined thousands of these strange cases. By his count, 10,000 plus hours of research. He's written 4 books. They're all under the name Missing 411. If you Google Missing 411, you'll find a plethora of information about these cases. He has 2 documentaries out. And so David, while he doesn't actually take a stance as to, what's causing these strange disappearances, anybody that follows along with the Missing 411 cases is basically led to believe that something is hunting humans in North America inside of national parks. It is fascinating, it is terrifying, and I've picked out 5 of the most bizarre cases that I've come across inside of Missing 411. Before we get into those 5 stories though, if this is the type of content that you're interested in, the strange, dark, and mysterious that I've kind of promised in this video, well, that's what my channel is all about. And I post 3 to 4 times a week. And so if that's your style and you like that type of content, if you could, please gently lambast the like button and then please turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's get into the stories. On Father's Day weekend, 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin, his brother, his father, and his grandfather headed up to the Smoky Mountains to go camping. This was a family tradition on Father's Day, and they were really excited about it. They get to the same campsite they always used, they set up, they have a wonderful first night, they camp out, and the next day, another camper in the area happened to walk by and saw that Dennis and his brother were playing there. And so this camper had kids as well, and he asked Dennis's father, hey, would it be okay if I brought my kids by? They're the same age as your sons, and they can just play together. Dennis's father says, sure, bring them down. And so the man goes, gets his kids, they come back, and before long, all the kids are playing hide and seek. Now, Dennis's father would say that he had an eye on Dennis the whole time. He was just at a distance, but watching his son to make sure he didn't get lost. And so at one point, all the kids are hiding from the parents. And, at some point, the parents say, okay, show yourselves. And all the kids, except for Dennis, show themselves. And Dennis's father has watched Dennis go behind a particular tree. He watched him do it. He was watching the whole time. And so when they said, come on out, and he didn't come out, he actually wasn't that concerned. because he knew exactly where his son was. And then after a few moments, he yelled to his son directly and starts walking over and says, "Dennis, come out, Dennis, I know you're behind the tree." And when he finally got over there, Dennis wasn't there. Dennis's father immediately starts running off into the woods, screaming for his son. And he actually ends up running almost 2 miles up the Appalachian Trail, just hollering for his son, and he can't find him. And then the rest of the family had broken up and was searching the area because they're thinking, like, he couldn't have gone very far. He was literally just here. And Dennis's father had said before, like, I watched him go behind the tree. I watched him. I don't know where he is, but I watched him go behind the tree. And so they're searching everywhere, and Dennis is gone. So a huge search, in fact, the biggest search in park history, ensues, with 1,500 searchers that included the Army Green Berets, so the special forces got involved. They are combing a 60 square mile plot. They're looking everywhere, and there is nothing. There is no trace. There's no scent. There is nothing connected to Dennis Martin anywhere. And so they go back to Dennis's father, and they're like, you have to tell us what you saw. Again, this doesn't add up. If you were looking at the tree and he was right there, how is it that he has just vanished into thin air? But no one knew. That was it. No one knows what happened. There's no closure. He's just gone, and they never knew what happened to him. Years later, when David Paulides was doing his research for Missing 411 and was researching the Dennis Martin case, he interviewed other families that had been at the campground at the same time that Dennis had gone missing. And one of those families was the Key family. And they had asked a park ranger where they could go on the campground where they might be able to see some bears. And so the park ranger obviously said, be careful, but you can go over here to this section of the campground and you might see a bear. And so they head over there and they're looking for bears. And one of their children hears a scream, or thinks he hears a scream, and kind of directs the family to look in the direction of the scream. And from their vantage point, they could see up onto the side of this mountain where there was, call it sparse trees all over the mountain, so you could kind of see in between the trees. And they saw what looked like a bear running along the mountainside, but with something slung over its shoulder. Except the interesting thing about this bear was the father was quoted as saying that it didn't really act like a bear. It was acting more like a human the way it was running. It looked, hairy and like an animal, but it was running and dodging between trees. It was holding this, what looked like a child, over its shoulder. It acted almost like a human. And so you have a bear man that has been spotted by the Key family, and they bring this up to the investigators that are looking into the Dennis Martin case. And obviously the Dennis Martin investigators, they don't take this seriously. They think that they're just saying some ridiculous thing for attention or whatever it is. So it never really was entered into the case with Dennis Martin. It wasn't until the Missing 411 cases that it was ever connected. But there really was a family that claims to have seen a bear man carrying a child about an hour after Dennis Martin had gone missing in the same area where Dennis Martin had gone missing.
Ja, mensen. Daar kun je het zien. Hè? Ik hoop dat ik nou niet kraak. Ik heb gehoord dat ik kraak, namelijk. Nee, nou is het geluid goed, hoor ik. Ja. Dus, erg interessant. Wat is met Dennis Martin gebeurd? En zo zijn er nog meer. Keith Parkins, ook weer iemand die in een nationaal park verdween. En ja, we gaan even kijken naar Dave Paulides, die dus zijn nieuwe film heeft uitgebracht, Missing 411, The UFO Connection. Het schijnt dat die mensen die als ze teruggevonden worden, dat die mensen verbrijzelde heupen hebben of schedel verbrijzeld, alsof ze van de lucht gevallen zijn op de grond. Serieus. Dus we gaan even kijken naar Dave Paulides. Die heeft 2 zaken uit British Columbia en Ohio.
First case out of British Columbia. I'm going to impart on you, and you're going to remember that southern British Columbia, along the Washington, Idaho borders, some of the most unusual land in the world. More unusual things are reported there. UFOs, Bigfoot, everything. Than probably any place else in the world that I can remember. And I mean in a vast, vast area, not in a little tiny cluster. I mean almost that entire southern stretch of BC. And when this case happened, I was in the middle of refining my research on missing people, but I knew right away when this case happened to start paying attention. The man's name was Gordon Sagoo, Sagoo, 50 years old. Disappeared August 14th, 2016. Let's stop everything for a second. Remember, I've told you before that you got to find what your mission is here in life. I really do believe we all have a mission. And I think some of us find it, and some of us don't. And some of us don't because we're not trying. Get too lazy, sitting down watching videos all day, sitting down watching TV. The problem is sitting and watching. When you read, your mind's working. Read. And it's important to get out and socialize. Don't stay in that room your whole life. You were meant to get out and be productive and to contribute. And this man who disappeared found his calling in life. Gordon Sagoo, 50 years old, was obese, grossly overweight when he was in his 40s. And a light bulb went off in his head and he said, I've got to change. And he went through a profound life change in his 40s. What he found was, this is Gordon, what he found was running changed his life. Running has changed my life over the years. It helps me clear my mind, keeps my body in shape. It does things and energizes things in your system that help your body respond to stress and strain. But running really changed Gordon. He was a general manager for a company called Apollo Signs in Vancouver. And after he went through this transformation of running and losing all this weight and becoming active and toned, he became a personal trainer and a coach. Fitness and personal growth became his passion. Imagine the transformation of somebody like this. If Gordon can do it, anybody could do it. Passion, will, execution. Well, on August 14th, 2016, Gordon went to the CHEAM Mountains with a friend named Cheryl Budai. And when they got to the mountains, Cheryl, Gordon, and another hiker were together on the trail in an area near Baby Mundy Peak. Yes, Baby Mundy, M-U-N-D-Y Peak. Now, where's that at, Dave? I've got that for you. So this is Chilliwack, British Columbia. This is the Fraser River. This is Baby Mundy. This is Harrison Mills. This area down in here, this would be down near the Washington border. This region in here is so wild and so dense and so thick that you get off the road and you're immediately in deep wilderness. But he's on Baby Monday, and they're hiking along. Everything's great. They're having fun. And Gordon says, hey, I'm just going to go ahead a little bit and look around. But he was going to stay on the same trail. And Cheryl and their other friends said that they could see Gordon ahead on the trail. And they believed he was heading towards a mountain named Mount Knight, which was just west of Baby Mundy. And they thought Gordon would meet him at the trailhead at the car. So they made it down to the trailhead, to the car. They waited. The other hiker went back up the trail to look for Gordon. They knew that he had 3 liters of water and his cell phone. And late on August 14th, they called authorities and reported him missing. It's a hard thing to do. Now remember, Gordon was in outstanding physical condition. Smart man. Brain worked great. On the 15th of August, 4 different teams of search and rescue people, Chilliwack, Coquitlam, Surrey, and RCMP, all were there. Hundreds. 2 different search dog teams with multiple dogs on each team went out to look. They even put a remote-controlled specialized plane into the sky that the RCMP operated. They found nothing. A 7-day search found nothing. Well, Gordon's family ran a GoFundMe program, and they raised $30,000, and they hired private searchers to go out for secondary and third searches for Gordon. They found nothing. Now, they had a point of separation on the trail. And Gordon was a trail runner. Remember the past videos I've made where I talk about trail runners disappearing. Friends said that Gordon was mentally and physically strong. It's been 6 years since that incident. Not one thing of Gordon's has ever been found. How can that be? How could they have not found him?
How indeed. Ja, hoe kan het nou dat er niks van hem gevonden is? Nou, ik heb het laten zien. Kijk hier, Baby Monday Peak. Die is hij dus gaan beklimmen en nooit van teruggekomen. Ja, wat is er nou gebeurd? Moet je maar die kazen opzoeken. Missing 411. Maar hij was goed bepakt en bezakt en zoiets. En ja, je weet niet wat u kan overkomen. Ja. Dus vooral British Columbia, de Highway of Tears, kennen we ook wel. Die staat ook bekend om heel veel vermiste mensen. Even kijken, Highway of Tears, daar. The Highway of Tears, unsolved serial murders of Aboriginal women. Hey, stil meisje, stil nou. Hey. The Highway of Tears, disappearances. Ja mensen, er gebeurt veel in de wereld. Mensen verdwijnen in één keer. En daar hebben we het nog niet eens gehad over wat er in Oekraïne allemaal afspeelt. En zoiets, verschrikkingen van de mensen. Hebben we daar nog niet eens over gehad. Maar dit is wel een topic om je aandacht bij te blijven. Want er zijn ook mensen vermist die in de Alpen waren. En zoiets. Dus ja, erg interessant. Wat er allemaal in de wereld gebeurt. Very interesting what's happening in the world. You know, the Highway of Tears, which is also in British Columbia. And, you know, people are vanishing. It's like, what's happening here? You know? What is happening? Wat gebeurt er allemaal, mensen? Worden deze mensen gekidnapt door de Bigfoot, Sasquatch? Of worden die door UFO's meegenomen? Worden die vermoord? Is er een seriemoordenaar? Of iets in die trend daar in die omgeving? Je weet het niet. Je weet het niet. Mensen verdwijnen in één keer. Dat is dan wel iets om daarbij op te letten. Van hé, dit gebeurt, mensen. Dit gebeurt. Er zijn genoeg documentaires over The Highway of Tears. Enough documentaries. We want an inquiry. Honor our missing. Indeed. I want to know what's happening. I want to know why people are missing. You know, very, very interesting to see what's happening here in the world. Oh, exit page. So, jammer dan. Ja, mensen. Het ligt aan ons. Wij moeten erachter zien te komen wat er nou allemaal gebeurt. Ja, het ligt aan ons. Het zijn serieuze issues, hè. Keith Parkins, wat is daarmee gebeurd? Ja. Dus zo zijn er nog heel veel andere dingen om te bekijken. Sidestep Adventures is ook altijd interessant. Robert gaat dus, die woont in Amerika, in het zuiden. Even kijken, waar zat hij ook alweer? South Carolina volgens mij, daar ergens. Georgia, volgens mij was het Georgia. Of South Carolina, een van de twee. Daar zit hij dus en dan gaat hij dus naar begraafplaatsen toe om die mensen te herdenken en te eren. Ja, erg interessant. We gaan even een kijkje nemen.
See if we can read this one here.
Oh, moet natuurlijk wel de microfoon uit, anders krijg je een echo.
I didn't bring my clippers with me. William Lewis Jones. May 16th, 1892. February 24th, 1934. I can't read this marker. This is a military one. Willie L. Jones, Georgia. Can't make it out here. I have to get my flashlight. Hey, welcome to Sidestep Adventures. Wait a minute, this isn't Sidestep Adventures. Robert's not here. Where's he at? It's only the other Robert and my little puppy. Hopper, say hello. There you go. Robert's busy today. Probably working hard out there at the bird farm. Grandpa always said that Robert gave 110%. 7 days a week, 365 days. I mean, he is busting his butt out there from sunrise to sundown. And so I came out today on my own to do a little South Georgia ride, and it's just pieces of stuff. Since I haven't been around in a while, we've all been dealing with our own little health issues and things like that. So while Robert's really hard working somewhere, I'm going to take you around here in this little small community in South Georgia and just touch on a few things. So let's go take a look. Come on, Hopper, let's see what this is down here. This is a little dumping area this community had, and over the years they used to just dump all their, actually they used to dump their garbage back here. Then the state stopped them from doing it, but this is rubble. This rubble here, I think, and I could be wrong, I think a lot of this is from the old schoolhouse that used to be over here. Actually, it used to be right over there in the woods. But this is pretty neat how they took the old field stones from the field and used them as the base, plus some debris and rubble when they poured the concrete for the steps to the school. Now I was looking for something in particular. I hope I can find it. I may have to go through a bunch of editing to get this, to find exactly what it is, but these rocks are sedimentary rocks. There it is right there. You can barely see it, but that is sort of a fossilized shell or something. This is a sedimentary rock. There's another one right there. I don't know if you can see that one. These are old field stones that came out of the soil down here that at one time, I guess many years ago, millions of years ago, was probably the ocean floor. There's a good example of one right there. See that one right there? If you can see that. I'm gonna come down here one day and dig through this mess. Might find something down here in the old dump area. There's a few Civil War soldiers laid to rest out here, and then after that we're gonna ride around some through the town and just spend the whole day down here in South Georgia and look things over and do a little short video and have some fun maybe. And we'll
Nou, dat doet Sidestep Adventures dus, hè. Die gaat dan naar plekken toe, bijvoorbeeld begraafplaatsen en zoiets. Hier heb je een graf. Dus ja, dan gaan ze dat ontaarden, hè. En dan gaan ze kijken wie daar gelegen heeft, gaan ze dat registreren en zoiets. Erg interessant. En Robert heeft ook een andere kanaal waar hij bezig is met een huis te restaureren. Dus ja, erg interessant om dat te bekijken, mensen. Dat raad ik jullie wel aan. Goed, terug naar het nieuws. We hebben altijd Al Jazeera hebben in de gaten. Hey, stil nou, meis. Ja, verdorie. Hey, zijn we nou stil of niet? Zijn we nou stil? Goed zo. Nou, Peru is nog steeds aan protesteren. There are still protests in Peru. And what's happening in Peru? Well, the president of Peru wanted to close down government, basically, and the government said, nope, you're not going to close us down, we are going to arrest you. So he's put under house arrest right now, and many people are protesting in Peru. The supporters of Castillo And we're going to take a look at that.
From their mountain homes to the streets of the small town of Uripa, high up in the Andes. Hundreds of farmers joined in. They marched, demanding their rights to promises former President Pedro Castillo made during his campaign. Lidia Pillaca says she will not give up on the expectations she had when she voted for him 18 months ago.
The laws are made to favor the rich. We don't have a voice or a vote. We want a constituent assembly to close Congress, and we want President Dina Boluarte to resign. She does not represent us.
Many protesters here say Castillo's removal from office and arrest make him a political prisoner.
Disolver.
Castillo ordered the dissolution of Congress and the arrest of the prosecutor investigating him on corruption allegations. Now he faces charges of rebellion and up to 20 years in prison. Pedro Castillo won with more than 80% of the vote. Although people here say he didn't fulfill any of the promises he made, they say it's the lawmakers' responsibility because they did not allow Castillo to work. Without Castillo, these farmers see their expectations for better living conditions slipping away. They blame the new president, Dina Boluarte.
Castillo promised agrarian reforms and we voted for him, but now Boluarte has betrayed us. She was our sister, but now we want her out.
For a month, Peru has witnessed protests, death and destruction. The country is in a state of emergency. Farmers here are continuously on strike, taking turns to block the main highway.
We are so tired, all of us, the elderly, children, but we're all taking part in the fight. It's the only way. If they don't listen to us, we will continue with our fight.
1 month on, Pedro Castillo is a symbol fading away. But the people of Uripa say his promises are now a force for renewed hope. And the only way for change, they say, is to continue fighting.
Ja mensen, dat gebeurt dus in Peru. De president wou het parlement stopzetten. En het parlement zegt van nee, we gaan je arresteren. Dat gaan we doen. Ja, en nu heeft hij dus huisarrest. En heel veel mensen zijn daar tegen. Ja. Dus dan weten jullie ook wat er in Peru allemaal afspeelt. En we hebben ook Iran even belicht. En we belichten natuurlijk ook andere landen. Zo zijn er heel veel landen die we kunnen belichten. Brazilië, ook daar is onrust. Heel veel mensen zijn tegen Lula. Hey, stil nou, stil. Je kan mooi zingen, meisje. Je kan heel mooi zingen. Ja, stil maar. Dus in Brazilië is ook heel veel protesten en zoiets. En daar is het ook los aan het gaan. De enigste land binnen Zuid-Amerika die stabiel is eigenlijk Argentinië niet. Uruguay kunnen gewoon een stabiel land. Begint ze weer te zingen. Hey. Ja, ik ben een hele dag weg geweest. Hè. Maar Uruguay, dat is nog een stabiel land. The only stable country within South America is Uruguay. Paraguay is also a stable country, but the rest is unstable. You know, Argentina has a big loan of the IMF that they must pay, and this and that. You know, there's a lot going on in the world. En ik probeer het allemaal in 2 talen uit te leggen. Het is nog steeds instabiel bij de Democratische Republiek Congo. daar zien we dus pockets van verzet die dus eigenlijk de regering proberen omver te werpen en zoiets. Ook een instabiel land. En als we de rest van Afrika bekijken, Noord-Afrika bijvoorbeeld, Marokko gaat er niet zo heel goed mee. Heel veel mensen die gaan naar de Spaanse enclave toe, die in Marokko zit. En die ontvluchten dus het land. En zo heb je ook een bevolking in het westen van Sahara die zegt van nou Marokko, we willen eigenlijk niet bij jullie horen. En Marokko zegt van jullie horen bij ons en zoiets. Dus ook daar is het instabiel. Het gaat wel goed in Irak. Dat is wel iets moois om te zeggen. Want als we nou kijken naar Irak, dan heb je de eerste. Ga weg, mees. De katten. Dan heb je de eerste toernooi van de golfstaten in Irak. En het heeft toch wel heel erg lang geduurd eer dat mogelijk was. Even kijken of we het hier kunnen vinden. De pagina blijft hangen. Zo. Hup. Even kijken of we het kunnen vinden. Waar staat dat? Eens even kijken. Ja, er gebeurt heel veel mensen. Maar Irak die kan de Arabische Golfstaten Cup hosten. Net als Qatar de WK ging hosten. Kan Irak voor de eerste keer in 44 jaar de Midden-Oosten Cup hosten. Ja, erg interessant. Dus Bolivia protests. Ja, ook daar is er heel veel protest in Bolivia. Zoals eerder gezegd, de enige stabiele landen zijn Uruguay en Paraguay een beetje. En Bolivia is ook erg instabiel. Even kijken, Bolivia. Nou ja. Dus sommige landen gaat het goed, andere landen gaat het slecht. Ja. Some countries it's okay, other countries nope. Like Iran, right? People are being executed in Iran. And there's so much to tell. Er is zoveel te vertellen, mensen. Maar volgens mij heb ik al lang genoeg gepraat. Weer wat aandacht gegeven aan de verdwenen mensen. Baby Monday Peak. Ja, daar verdwijnen veel mensen. De Highway of Tears hebben we ook laten zien. Dus genoeg om op te zoeken, mensen. We moeten blijven opletten met wat er gebeurt in de wereld. En ook geschiedenis is belangrijk. De Northwestern Passage, ook iets om op te zoeken. Die twee schepen die dus een doorgang zochten naar China. Zonder dat ze helemaal om Zuid-Amerika heen moesten. En zoiets. Dachten ze dus een korte weg te vinden via de Northwestern Passage. En ze raakten daarin verstrikt. Dus ook interessant om dat stukje geschiedenis even aan te halen. En ja, wat nog allemaal? The Whiskey Wars. Have you guys heard of the Whiskey Wars? Right? Whiskey Wars. There you go. Even kijken of we kunnen vinden. Hier. Het gaat om een dispuut bij een van de eilandjes hier zo. En Denemarken die ging ooit op expeditie en die ging dus hun vlag neerzetten op het eiland. En Canada zegt van, nee, dat kan niet hè. Dat kan geen Deense eiland zijn. Nee, dat moet je zien. Hè. Dat zit bij ons. Dus gingen ze naar het eiland toe, gingen ze de vlag weghalen, gingen ze daar een Canadese vlag neerzetten. Nou, en zo kwam er dus een dispuut tussen Canada en Denemarken. Erg interessant. We gaan dat nog even bekijken.
NordVPN. People think they are strange and maybe dangerous, and yet somehow there are a lot more of them than you would expect. Indeed, there are currently hundreds of border disputes across the world, which are usually extremely complicated and difficult to solve. This is why seeing one being resolved is rare and feels quite refreshing. Exactly that happened in the case of Hans Island, which was disputed between Denmark and Canada until the war in Ukraine happened. How did the war lead to the end of this dispute, you may ask? Well, I'll explain, but there's another question we must answer first. What the hell is Hans Island? The island, which is also known as Tartupaluk in the local Inuit language, is located here, right between Canada and Greenland, which is officially an autonomous part of Denmark. The island itself is fairly unremarkable, an inhospitable and frozen wasteland about the size of 200 football or soccer fields. It has no significant deposits of natural resources we know of, nor an exceptionally strategic location to offer. The population is exactly zero, and the only people who occasionally visit the area are the local Inuit hunters who have inhabited the surrounding region for millennia. What makes Hans Island special though is not the territory itself, but how the dispute over it was fought, namely with flags and alcohol. Some of you connoisseurs of obscure geopolitical fun facts may know this already, but Hans Island was the site of the infamous Whiskey War. No, not that sort of Whiskey War. The Whiskey War was often described as the world's friendliest geopolitical quote-unquote. It's not really clear who started it, but most sources I've seen trace the beginning to the Danish back in 1984. Why does this always happen when I mention that year? Anyways, back then the Danish delegation, led by the Danish Minister of Greenland, was sent to Hans Island in order to plant the Danish flag there. Before leaving, they left a note and some Danish schnapps in anticipation of a Canadian retaliation. And soon enough, the Canadians responded by sending a delegation of their own. They removed the Danish flag, replaced it with the Canadian one, left a note, and then properly disposed of the Danish schnapps, only to leave some Canadian whiskey on the island instead. And so, somewhat of a tradition was born which saw the Canadians and Danes taking turns in sending small delegations to the island, which would respectfully replace each other's flags and leave some of their own national alcoholic beverages behind. While this sounds like all fun and games, there were also times when the Canadian and Danish governments got a bit more serious with each other about the issue. Increasingly, both sides were sending navy vessels to patrol the area to bolster their claim on Hans Island, which some feared may end up causing a serious incident. One such potentially dangerous occasion happened in 2005 after the Canadian Minister of Defense visited Hans Island. In response, the Danish did the only sensible thing, sending a heavily armed navy ship to the island. As you might have guessed, this created a fairly tense situation, but fortunately the two foreign ministers of both countries were present in New York at the same time and quickly met and de-escalated.
Ja, mensen, zo zie je maar. Een oorlog kan ook uitgevochten worden middels een dialoog. Ja. Dus, laten we vooral met elkaar in dialoog blijven. En Evert zegt, niks is stabiel. Alles hangt nu af van het volk en van de geldwolf en van Times van pedo's. Nu geven ze niks om de mensen. Overal nu. Ja, kijk, wij hebben overheid, zodat overheid ons beschermt van hoge kosten en noem het allemaal op. Dat is het gecentraliseerde macht wat wij hebben. Ja, en dat gecentraliseerde macht, dat wil nu meer macht hebben. Ja, nog meer macht dan dat ze al hebben. En daarin ligt het gevaar. Dan begeef je op glad ijs. Ja. Ik hoop dat het geluid nu beter is. Dat ik nu niet kraak. Want Joke zegt dat ik kraak. Kijk wat Leander zegt. Dit staat Europa ook nog te wachten als wij niet opstaan tegen deze tyrannieke machten. Ja, we moeten inderdaad iets gaan doen. Maar ja, wat kunnen we gaan doen? Nou, we zijn al gaan demonstreren alweer in Amsterdam. En wat heeft het opgelost? Wat heeft dat opgelost? Als je verandering wil, dan moet je ook iets er tegenover stellen. Wat wil je veranderen? Dus het ligt inderdaad aan ons. De missing people cases en zoiets. Ja, wij hebben een bijdrage hieraan. En ik ben blij voor Dave Paulides. I'm happy for you that Missing 411, the UFO connection, is the best seen documentary in the world right now. So I'm glad to participate in that, to be part of the community, right? Because I'm searching the truth. That's what I'm doing. In 2 languages, right? So, yeah. I've said enough for today. I thank you all for watching. And we'll see each other next time. Zo, nog een toetje op de taart. Even kijken, je microfoon. Nou ja. De groei mensen. En tot de volgende keer.